Well, there it is, of course, the symbol of Canada in the minds of most people around the world. It is the Peace Tower, this great soaring pile of stone that was built and finished in 1919. Of course, the center block of the Parliament buildings burned down. The original center block burned down in February of 1916, and the only part of this building that was left was the historic library, which was just renovated recently and opened at a cost of $137 million. But it's a gorgeous place. We'll show you that on another day. Right now we're going to continue our tour around the parliamentary precinct and show you some more of the monuments that are here that commemorate our 160 plus years of history as a nation. And thank goodness that people in the past have taken the time to commemorate these events because and these individuals, because they were the events and the people who built our country. Here's some more of our tour of the parliamentary precinct. Station 15, Sir John A Macdonald. Sir John A Macdonald, 1815 to 1891, first Prime Minister of Canada, 1867 to 1873 and 1878 to 1891. Sir John A Macdonald's role in shaping Canada's history is unparalleled. He played a leading role in the Confederation negotiations and was Canada's first Prime Minister. Under his government, Canada experienced rapid growth and prosperity. Manitoba, British Columbia, Prince Edward Island joined Confederation, while the last spike of the Canadian Pacific Railway's transcontinental line was driven into the ground. Through his leadership as a Father of Confederation, his vision of a united Canada from sea to sea, and his efforts to include all provinces within the greater Canadian family, Macdonald left an indelible mark on Canada. The woman at the base of the monument is holding the Canadian coat of arms, as it was when Macdonald was alive. As head of the government, the Prime Minister of Canada plays several roles: party leader, member of Parliament, cabinet chairman, international statesman, and national icon. The Prime Minister's role is not defined in our statutes or constitutional documents. Instead, the role has evolved over time and has been shaped by tradition and convention. Station 16, William Lyon Mackenzie King, 1874 to 1950, 10th Prime Minister of Canada, 1921 to 26, 1926 to 30, and 1935 to 1948. Take a look at the different style of William Lyon Mackenzie King's statue. The artist wanted to capture the force of character, dynamism, and determination for which this man was famous. It is thanks to these undeniable qualities that Mackenzie King held power for almost 22 years through the 1920s, 30s, and 40s. This constitutes a record for all prime ministers. The first prime minister to obtain Canadian citizenship, which he introduced in 1947, Mackenzie King also initiated many of Canada's first social programs: family allowance, the old age pension, and unemployment insurance. Mackenzie King's accomplishments continue to affect the day-to-day lives of every Canadian. Station 17, Sir Wilfrid Laurier, 1841 to 1919, 7th Prime Minister of Canada, 1896 to 1911. Sir Wilfrid Laurier holds the record for the longest continuous term as Prime Minister, 1896 to 1911. In addition to his 15 years as Prime Minister, he was also a Member of Parliament for 30 years. Considered by many to be the dominant political figure of the era, Sir Wilfrid Laurier fought above all for national unity, sustaining an often delicate balance between the demands of the Empire and the desire for Canadian independence. Under his administration, Alberta and Saskatchewan joined Confederation. Canada experienced agricultural and industrial progress, and the Grand Trunk Pacific Railway was completed. Station 18, the East Bloc and West Bloc. East Bloc and West Blocs were originally supposed to house all of the ministries and federal public servants. However, in 1883, the government already had planned for additional space due to the country's rapid expansion. Today, the senators and members of Parliament as well as their staffs, are spread out among Centre Block, East Block, West Block, and several other buildings close by, while the offices of the ministries are found all over Canada's capital region. Notice the similarities in style between the East and West Blocks. Both were erected in the 1860s and are examples of high Victorian Gothic architecture. This style is characterized by multiple pointed arches, high leaded glass windows, stones of irregular shape and tone, and gargoyles and grotesques that watch from everywhere. Look closely and see if you can spot some of those features. The outer walls of the Parliament buildings are made of local Nepean sandstone, a porous, mineral-rich stone that reacts with the pollution in the air. Once a pale beige color, the stones have turned black over the years. You can feel their sponge-like quality. Originally, colored and patterned slate tiles covered the roofs of the buildings on Parliament Hill. When it came time to replace them, more resistant copper panels were used. The green color is the result of a chemical reaction caused by copper coming into contact with oxygen and other weathering agents like rain and pollution. The copper turns slowly from brown to the distinctive green. Station 19, the Centennial Flame. At the foot of the central walk to the Parliament buildings is the monument commemorating Canada's 100th anniversary of Confederation in 1967. The Centennial Flame is a permanent reminder of the unbounded optimism of that centennial year. Alberta natural gas feeds the flame that burns through the water which flows over the bronze shields of the statues and territories that existed in 1967. Each of the 12 segments is also ornamented with the floral symbol and date that province or territory joined Confederation. Station 20. Centre Block. Centre Block, constructed between 1916 and 1920, is the home of the Senate and the House of Commons. It is here that national issues are investigated and where legislation is introduced, debated, and revised, and once passed becomes the law of the land. The Senate chamber is located in the east half of the Centre Block, and the House of Commons chamber in the west half. Here, 105 senators and 308 members of Parliament work to represent the many different concerns and perspectives from across the country. The Hall of Honor crosses through the center of the building. It links all the elements of the Centre Block together and serves as a fitting setting for national commemorations and ceremonies. In front of Centre Block stands the Peace Tower, the most striking feature and one of the most recognized symbols on Parliament Hill. Behind Centre Block stands the Library of Parliament, the only surviving part of the original building. The Peace Tower. The Peace Tower was built from 1919 to 1927 and was dedicated to the more than 60,000 Canadian soldiers who gave their lives on the battlegrounds of Europe during the First World War. Standing 92 meters or 302 feet tall, this tower was inaugurated during Canada's 60th anniversaries in 1927. The Peace Tower houses the Memorial Chamber, dedicated to the memory of the brave Canadian men and women who have fought for Canada and given their lives for their country. Unlike the Victoria Tower, which it replaced, the Peace Tower is a campanile, a freestanding bell tower. In addition to the towers which chime the quarter hours and strike the hours, it houses the carillon, a set of bells sounded from a keyboard. There are 53 bells in the Peace Tower carillon. The largest is called the boudron, which weighs in at 10,000 kilograms, 22,000 pounds. That's roughly the weight of 3 adult elephants. The smallest bell, on the other hand, weighs just 4 kilograms or 10 pounds. We owe the richness and beauty of the sound of the bells to the expert orchestration of the Dominion Carillionaire. Station 21. John G. Diefenbaker, 1895 to 1979. 13th Prime Minister of Canada, 1957-1963. This monument brings out the dynamism that was so characteristic of John Diefenbaker. Notice how it's placed so that he's stepping towards the city. His head remains turned to the left, however, as if he were keeping close watch on the proceedings of Parliament. John Diefenbaker's legacy is the adoption of the Canadian Bill of Rights in 1960, which outlines the fundamental rights of individual Canadians that must be respected under federal law. This document led to the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, which is entrenched in the Canadian Constitution. Station 22, Sir Robert Borden, 1854 to 1937, 8th Prime Minister of Canada, 1911 to 1920. Sir Robert Laird Borden was Prime Minister when the original Parliament building was destroyed by fire in 1916. He oversaw the initial phases of its reconstruction, including laying the cornerstone for the Peace Tower. Borden's renowned for the determination and energy with which he led Canada, particularly during World War I. Borden's main achievements involve the constitutional development of Canada. The scroll he holds represent the brief that he carried to the Paris Peace Conference in 1919, where he won a voice for Canada in the Allied peace negotiations, an important first step to international recognition. In March 1918, the Borden government introduced the Act to confer the electoral franchise upon women, giving the right to vote in federal elections to all women over 18 who were British subjects. Canadian citizenship was not established until 1947.